The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Here we go, Yarrow.
Now we're making cold brew at home, and we're making it like 2 days before in a mason jar.
Yarrow.
And the coffee tastes way better.
Yarrow, we're trying to start the show.
Yarrow. Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, June 3rd, and Yarrow is all amped up off his cold brew. And then today is National Egg Day today, you guys.
Excellent.
Oh, I see what you did there, Michael. That was very cute. Very cute. It's also National Chocolate Macaroon Day. There's your French your French flair right there, Yarrow.
I'm more of like a lavender macaroon kind of girl. You know, I like that more fruity, fresh, vanilla bean.
Lavender macaroni. Mm-hmm.
They're delicious. Shout out to Bottega Louie.
Mm-hmm. It's also National Repeat Day today, you guys.
Hey, it's National Repeat Day today.
So Jason's going to say things more than once again. Great.
Oh, man. Jenny, you're
National
so funny.
Repeat Day. It's
That's right.
National Repeat Day.
Mm-hmm.
National Repeat Day.
Mm-hmm. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And we are kicking it off with the Southern Belle herself, Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis and of Justice Served, a 501c3 that can help you get your life back on track if you are a justice-impaired individual. It is none other than Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
Oh my goodness, yes. Justice impaired, Jason.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I really love that one.
Yeah,
I don't know why you guys don't like it.
Because it's impacted. I don't think it's an impairment. It could be. Depends on. All right. So, Ohio, Jason.
I love it. Ohio.
OH.
Yeah.
Oh,
boy.
Ohio.
All right. So, lawmakers in Ohio are moving closer to approving changes to the state's voter-approved recreational marijuana law. 57% of voters backed Issue 2 last November, legalizing the possession, sale, growing, and sharing of cannabis for adults 21 and older. But under a revised bill, Senate Bill 56, legislators are preparing to modify parts of what voters authorized. Oh, no. They're not listening to the constituents again. The bill, a compromise between the House, Senate, and Governor Mike DeWine's office, would address key areas including how much marijuana adults can grow at home, where it can be consumed, and the taxation structure for cannabis sales. House Speaker Matt Huffman says changes are needed, noting THC products differ significantly from alcohol and tobacco. I think. Among the proposed changes, adults could grow up to 6 plants individually or 12 per household. Smoking and vaping would be allowed only on private property with permission, including at outdoor concert venues. So that's kind of cool. Concert venues. Public use, including in workplaces, childcare facilities, and halfway houses would remain prohibited. Seems fair. Landlords could ban tenants from smoking or vaping cannabis. Jason Beck's going to have something to say about that. Mm-hmm. Possession limits would be set at 2.5 ounces of plant material and 15 grams of extract. Licensed dispensaries would be capped at 400 statewide, spaced at least a mile apart. THC potency would be limited to 35% for flower and 70% for extracts. The extracts is a problem, 35% for flower, because, your flower tests at 35%. Sure it does. though regulators could later adjust those limits. Another significant shift, can you hear me now?
Now, there we go. Yep.
Thank you. While voters approved a 10% tax with specific earmarks, including 36% for social equity programs, those earmarks would be removed under the new bill. Instead, most tax dollars would go into the state's general fund, aka COPS, with 25% temporarily directed to local governments that host dispensaries. Since legal sales began in August, nearly $540 million in cannabis has been sold, generating around $54 million in tax revenue so far. This legislation would also require cannabis products in vehicles to remain in sealed packages stored in the trunk or the back seat, prohibit business licenses for individuals with recent serious criminal convictions, excluding misdemeanor marijuana offenses, expand cultivation limits allowing large growers up to 100,000 square feet, and set rules for online ordering and delivery. One controversial provision, mandatory jail time for cannabis use in vehicles, has been dropped. However, it would still be considered a minor misdemeanor. Lawmakers aim to get the bill to Governor DeWine's desk before the legislative recess at the end of June. So a lot of things to unpack there. I think I kind of picked at the parts that I wanted to complain about, but you guys go ahead and we'll kick it around a little bit.
That totally sounds like you, Jenny Beth, picking the parts you want to complain about.
Yeah, it does.
Very on brand.
Yeah, right. Very much on brand. Yeah, exactly. I'm so here for that.
Hey, I'm the princess around this motherfucker. I get to do that. Okay.
But yeah, you are right. The fact that they're saying that they can't smoke, in the properties, like I understand that to some degree. You know what I mean? I understand the landlord rights and whatnot, but like for like a lot of these multifamily buildings and whatnot that are designed to house multiple people, to me, I think is just totally ridiculous if you guys are going to have those types of bans. I can understand if it was a private house or whatnot, but like for those type of multi-units, I don't understand. And people want to say, oh yeah, it's because of the air and you're sharing the airspace and da-da-da-da. Well, you're sharing the airspace outside with everybody already. So that's kind of just stupid.
Yeah, this is something we've gotten a few calls on here in Florida, related to people not even smoking in their, establishments like apartments or condo complexes here, but making their own edibles that are patients.
Oh, that's a good one.
Cease and desist and leave and things of that nature. And really, Florida law is pretty much silent on the issue. So it's really something that's probably going to end up having to be litigated here.
Interesting. Most municipalities, they just out here in California, they just consider cannabis smoke the same as tobacco smoke and just classify it as that. But like West Hollywood made a clear distinction that cannabis smoke is different than tobacco smoke and therefore not subject to the same Prop 64 or not Prop 64, but what's the proposition, Jenny? The Prop 36 requirements for on the clean air side.
So does that give people more rights to smoke cannabis than cigarettes?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, it actually does.
As it should be.
As I'm with that. And granted, I don't want anyone smoking cigarettes around me, so I understand that. But at the same time, for them to just lump cannabis smoke in there as saying that it's a cancer-causing carcinogen without the proper medical data, I think is a little irrational.
It's obviously not based on any facts, but those Ohioans, they have had a problem with their industry since it started. Just like I think almost most states, this has been rocky waters for cannabis to get up and going, unlike any other product that we've ever seen on the market. And these are just continued hurdles that legislators try to put in front of people, and limit THC amount and things of that nature, but then allow concentrates, which we do in Florida. We have a very large amount of concentrates that we can buy per month, but again, only the 2.5 ounces. So they're like, hey, use the stronger stuff. So those types of things just don't make sense to me when legislators do that. And at least with the flower, especially the 35%. I don't know if those test results are correct, if they're hitting up higher than that.
No, they're not. No.
I've seen 3 strains in the 10 years I've been testing that were in the 35% range. One of them is a Jenny Kush, strangely.
Oh, look at that.
And they've been consistently in the mid-30s 10 years. I saw a true OG in the 30s and a head cheese also in the 30s. But you're right. I mean, it's not very common to see THC in the 30s, for sure. And I know in California, it's like in the 40s. So, what do you believe?
Not that bullshit. I believe they paid extra for those percentage points on that testing. Ooh, or that lab really needed the customer that day.
Yeah, that's true.
And shout out to Jenny Kush. For you guys who don't know and you're not from Colorado, Jenny Kush was a strain done in honor of an advocate, Jenny Kush, that was killed by a drunk driver in Colorado. So that's where that strain came from.
Exactly.
Would love to take credit, but not me.
Interesting. Very, very.
You can take credit on this show.
Come on, Yarrow. We
You're the
know
Jenny Kush of this show.
We know you're sitting on the edge of your seat, Yarrow.
All right, well, this is all messed up for a variety of reasons. A 1 mile setback between dispensaries doesn't take into account that zoning restrictions are likely going to cluster dispensaries into certain areas. And a 1 mile setback is arbitrary. I think it's an infringement upon a free market model. It doesn't take into account denser urban markets where 1 mile could be a huge thing. I mean, San Francisco's only 7 miles square across, right? So that to me is terrible, terrible. The idea that they were going to give mandatory jail time for anybody caught under the influence of cannabis, even though that's now proposed to be stricken from the final version, is ridiculous. I mean, we don't even have a rubric for what the difference is between intoxication versus ingestation. We don't have the science there, and they're talking about throwing people in jail for 3 days. That's crazy. The increase from the cultivation from 25,000 square feet to 100,000 square feet could be seen as a lack of restriction on the business, but most likely will lead to a race to the bottom in this maturing market. What else do I have to say about this? The idea of not smoking in a house makes a lot of sense to me. The idea of not vaping doesn't. I mean, there's a difference between heat, not burn, and so I think again, probably just again, we want to have parity. If you could vape a Juul, you should be able to vape a Pax, right? Vape is vape. I mean, I could go on and on and on, and I have a tendency to try to, but the other thing I think is just crazy is this potency limit on flower.
Yeah.
I think we got a little sidetracked in having a conversation about what percentages are real or not here because we got too many smart people on the show, and luckily I don't need to be in that category. The truth is, what does it matter? If you're optimizing the genetic expression for Mother Nature and you hit a high potency limit, now you've broken the rules? Like, give me a break, right? That just is crazy. I can understand how they can put a limit on concentrates because your potency can be manipulated by the formulator. I do not understand how you can put a potency limit on flower because once you're growing it, your job is to make it as happy as possible, and however it turns out, it turns out. So you don't see a bricks limit on vineyards in Sonoma County. They're not limited by how much sugar content they can create in a grape. So it just doesn't feel like it's a very ag-centric policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's some guy who wrote this, and he's like, the weed's too strong now. Where's the stuff we had in high school?
Well, it goes exactly to what Yarrow said. The higher potency of weed makes people crazy, right? So, and that's really, I think, what they're pushing here in Florida. And I think that's the common rhetoric of that. The higher potency, the concentrates, okay, but the flower high potency makes you crazy.
It's all the same thing.
But
that's like saying
what it doesn't take into account is if somebody smokes 2 joints of cannabis that's at 15%, they could smoke 1 joint of cannabis that's at 30%. They're going to get to the same place.
That's not true.
Limiting the potency as this idea that we're limiting the total cannabinoids that somebody is going to ingest is not consistent with the idea of adults being able to navigate, figure out, and manage their limits, whatever that intoxicant is. And then the other thing that's pretty foobar about these proposals here is it looks like it's a gift to the regulated cannabis space that all of the intoxicating hemp products are going to need to be sold through regulated cannabis dispensaries, which are now going to be capped at 400 for the state. So we know that I believe that hemp is underregulated. I don't think forcing hemp products to be sold only through regulated cannabis dispensaries is going to help hemp products, because I think that you're taking something that's underregulated and you're putting it into a bucket that's overregulated, overtaxed, overcomplicated, lack of retail access, lack of accessibility. I don't think that's the solution for it. I think we need to see a reduction in regulation in cannabis and an increase in some areas for hemp, create some parity there. But saying that now every beverage that's made with hemp cannabinoids has to be sold through a dispensary, to me that feels like the Retailers Association of Ohio wrote the bill.
Well, it's also parody. What do you think, Jay?
I think it's totally ridiculous.
Jay Maguire.
Oh, Jay, yeah, Jay, what's up, Jay? Welcome. How are you today?
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
I'm all right, y'all. Today is the first day of ordinary time after the legislature adjourned. Signing died last night, so I'm moving a little slow. I feel like I'm shedding all that negativity. It got really thick around here, and what we face now today is a total ban.
Jay, we're gonna go into all that in your story.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We want to know what you think about this story.
I have no comment on this story because I don't have any brain cells left over from what I've been working on up until like midnight last night.
Fair enough.
If you're talking about parity between THC, hemp, and marijuana, I think that they're not the same thing, and they should be treated proportionately the same, if that makes sense.
Proportionate. So you're saying as far as serving size?
I think the level of intoxication is what counts, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think anyone really understands the level of intoxication for most people. I think it's total bullshit. Just like how Yarrow said, hey, if you smoke two 15% THC joints and you smoke 30% joint, the same two people are going to be just as high. But I think that's total bullshit.
For sure. But, we in Texas, I mean, gummies are the best example of this. You'll have you can have a bag with 5 gummies in it that has, 100 milligrams, or you can have a bag with, 50 that has that much more. And the thing we're trying to guard against isn't just people, maybe taking too much, but kids getting into that one bag.
Well, that's on parents. That's on parents. That's not on the manufacturers. That's on parents keeping stuff out of the hands of their kids.
No, sir. When your neck is in the noose, you'll be saying, "What about the parents?" instead of "What about the kids?" We have to pay attention to our politicians here, or they'll make us, because that's just what they did. But we'll talk about that in my story.
All right. Fair enough.
So, I just want one more on the 3-day jail thing for in the ingestion. That is impossible and ridiculous, and hopefully it doesn't become a trend in any other states like the nano limits and stuff, because as we know, you're going to do a urine, you're going to test positive no matter what, however long you've used it before, whether or not it was months or weeks. If you've been a heavy user for a long time, could be 4 months. So that's a travesty of justice, and hopefully, that continues to be thrown out of any and all conversations when looking at cannabis use for people.
And I think they were specifically referring to smoking while driving. So, I'm hoping that they're meaning if you pull up to, the red light and roll your windows down, you're hotboxing like high school, which was a terrible idea. And I don't know why we did it, because we got pulled over for it too. And you get pulled for that. Hopefully it's not all ingestion. But they knocked that one out. So thank God.
Should have been driving faster, Jenny.
Well, I wasn't driving. I was in the back seat. But anyhow, moving right along.
Yeah, we're going to roll into our first commercial, and we're going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, And I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, Not this stuff. This stuff is tested, every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility, so you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
I'm like, why was I not making my coffee in a mason jar? I mean,
man, you're
It's
funny.
repeat day. Yarrow's still talking about coffee, but coming up next, we got the highest Republican, the honcho of the High at 9 News, and my best friend and biggest pain in my ass, Jason Beck.
Yes. Good morning, you guys. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Well, you know, my story is about, you know, is about the boss. And there was a story that came out that people had tagged me in on social media asking my opinion and whatnot. So I decided to write a kind of a counterpiece to this piece that came out in Marijuana Moment, you guys, because to me, I thought it was very unfactual, the piece that they put out there in their headline and whatnot. But I'll just tell you what the headline was from Marijuana Moment in its original, and that was where are we? Hold on, give me 1 second. Trump wants to delete state medical marijuana protections from the budget was the headline. And I think that's total BS, but I'm going to go into my story because they say Trump's budget proposes eliminating state medical cannabis protections, continuing D.C. adult use cannabis sales ban, but Marijuana Moments claim lack evidence, you guys. That's right. The 2025 federal budget proposal attributed to former President Donald J. Trump administration seeks to remove protections for state medical cannabis programs and maintain a prohibition on legalizing adult use cannabis sales in Washington, D.C. The budget would eliminate a congressional rider that's been in place since 2014 that prevents the Department of Justice from using funds to interfere with state legal medical cannabis programs, known as the Rohrabacher-Blumenauer Amendment. This rider, introduced by Representative Dana Rohrabacher from California and Earl Blumenauer from Oregon, has protected patients, providers, and businesses in states with medical cannabis laws from federal prosecution. In a quote, "For years, we've fought to protect patients' access to medical cannabis under state law," Blumenauer said in a statement. "It's disappointing to see this administration propose reversing that process," he says. The budget also upholds a restriction barring Washington, D.C. from using local funds to regulate adult use cannabis sales, despite D.C. voters approving Initiative 71 in 2014 to legalize adult use cannabis. And the measure allows adults 21 and older to possess up to 2 ounces of cannabis and gift up to 1 ounce and cultivate up to 6 plants with a household maximum of 12 plants. The federal ban on regulated sales has led to an unregulated gray market where businesses provide cannabis as a gift with purchases like overpriced juice or art, raising concerns about safety and oversight. And in a quote, "The district's voters made their will clear, but Congress continues to block our ability to regulate cannabis sales," said D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, a Democrat, in response to the proposal. And it says an additional quote, "The restriction fuels an unsafe, untaxed market," she says. But there's a lack of evidence of Trump's direct involvement in this. Marijuana's Moments article titled "Trump Wants to Delete State Medical Marijuana Protections from Budget While Continuing to Block Cannabis Sales Legalization in D.C." claims that Trump is driving the proposal to remove the medical cannabis rider. However, the article provides no direct quote, statement, or primary source, a Trump speech, a tweet, a truth, or a policy memo, explicitly showing that Trump personally called for the rider's removal. Instead, it attributes the proposal to Trump's 2025 budget, a common journalistic shorthand for an administration's fiscal plan, typically prepared by the Office of Management and Budget, better known as the OMB, under the president's direction. These budgets often reflect bureaucratic or party priorities, not necessarily the president's personal stance on every provision. And the article notes that Trump's budgets in 2019 and 2020 proposed similar cuts, but similarly lacks evidence tying Trump directly to those decisions. And without a primary source, the claim that Trump personally seeks to eliminate the rider appears speculative, relying on his association with the budget rather than documented intent. And so I'm calling out Marijuana Moment as propaganda. And Marijuana Moment's assertion that Trump wants to remove the rider protects propaganda by implying personal intent without substantiation. And this framing risk misleading readers by attributing the proposal directly to Trump, potentially to inflate opposition rather than acknowledging the budget as a product of his administration's broader apparatus. Such reporting undermines journalistic integrity, prioritizing narrative over evidence, and especially given Trump's past support for state cannabis autonomy, which complicates the article's portrayal. And a search of X for evidence verifying Trump's personal involvement in the rider's removal yielded posts from Marijuana Moment and its staff restating the article's claim that Trump's fiscal year 2026 budget request proposes to delete the rider. However, these posts provide no primary source such as a Trump statement, a budget document excerpt, or official announcement to confirm that Trump himself called for the change. The absence of direct evidence on X supports the conclusion that Marijuana Moment's claim is unverified and relying on the budget's association with Trump's administration rather than proof of his personal directive. The budget proposal aligns with a mixed record from Trump's first term. In 2018, he endorsed the strengthening of the 10th Amendment through entrusting with the States Act, which would have protected state legal cannabis programs in 2020, and he suggested D.C. should have autonomy over its cannabis laws. And however, his administration rescinded the Cole memo in 2018, but the Cole memo didn't do anything anyway, and an Obama-era policy limiting federal enforcement against state-compliant cannabis businesses, indicating a stricter federal approach. As of February 2025, 38 states, 3 territories, and D.C. have medical cannabis programs, while 24 states have and 2 territories and D.C. allow for the adult use of cannabis, and eliminating the medical cannabis rider would expose state programs to federal enforcement, potentially disrupting patient access. And in D.C., the sales ban has fueled the unregulated market estimated at $500 million annually, and in 2024, with a 2024 report, with no tax revenue generated. In a quote, "This move threatens the stability of state medical cannabis programs that millions rely on," said Michael Correa, Director of Government Relations at the NCIA, and in an additional quote says, "We urge Congress to reject this proposal to protect patients." The budget requires congressional approval, and previous attempts to remove the medical cannabis rider in 2019-2020 failed due to bipartisan support for its restoration. And Congress will review the budget in its coming months, with advocates urging lawmakers to preserve the rider and grant D.C. authority to regulate adult use cannabis sales, you guys. Well, I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this, but I'll tell you what, if this rider doesn't go through, that's definitely going to provide a clear pathway for Jenny's story yesterday to really have some real teeth in the matter, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Article written like a true bootlicker. It wasn't Trump. I swear it wasn't Trump. He didn't do anything wrong. I swear.
Oh, you're so funny.
You just sounded like.
That's cool. That's fine.
But honestly, for our man Trump, it seems so inconsistent. He literally endorsed voting on legalization in Florida last year. So I really don't see.
He wanted to win Florida. He's a politician.
Yeah, but
whatever is for him.
But he wasn't running in Florida.
But the majority of Floridans were in favor of it. So he's a weather vane. And when he recognized that more, I'm like, look, if we're going to point to Trump's support of Measure 3, then we also have to point to the removal of the Cole memo, right? Like, how do you reconcile those?
Yeah, but the Cole memo never did anything, Yarrow.
Anything anyway.
The Cole memo never did anything.
If it didn't do anything, why go through the effort of removing it? Like, you're not going to win that argument.
That's why he wants a de-Obama. Yeah,
I'm just saying the Cole memo never did anything, so I don't see why advocates get all up in arms about its removal, because it never did anything. And Jenny, you're on mute, so we can't hear anything you're saying.
It removed funding for the feds to go after
about Trump, so I can get a word in edgewise about the actual article.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, right, article.
Mm-hmm.
That was Michael's very first tiptoe into what Jenny Beth is. So yeah, I am snarky. So yeah, the article that I presented yesterday was very interesting because it doesn't have any teeth with the Roebuck Farm Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
if that's removed, then we have a big fucking problem in California. And California needs to pay attention because we didn't do this as a legislative process. We did this as a budget proposal. What that means to you guys is, hey, we're going to slip it up under here in the rest of the California state budget. We're going to put it in your ass, and you're not going to find out until 12 days before it's supposed to go in to be voted on. And see you July 1st, we might have guns, we might have undercover DCC agents, and we might have the federal government helping us. So this is actually a really terrifying time in cannabis, especially for California operators, because I remember the days when we were operating would have to give our employees raid training. And I hated those. And you've heard me talk about it before. You've heard I started putting help wanted signs up and putting new hire ads out 2 weeks before raid training, because I know when they come in and they it doesn't matter if they're really going to stick a gun in your face. This is what this looks like when the federal government comes in and raids your facility, and it scares the shit out of people. And they're like, oh shit, this isn't safe. No, guys, it's not. And the few protections that we have in place that makes it seem quasi-safe or makes us seem like we're going to possibly be able to operate this licensed business will go away if this is pushed through. And so that's terrifying to me. And for anybody who came through that generation of cannabis operators, your shit should be in order right now, and you should be fighting with everything that you can for both of these issues, and it's terrifying.
Go for it, Yarrow.
I just, what you basically did was sort of slander this website for journalistic integrity because they're doing their best to read the tea leaves. Presidents don't opine publicly on every single policy thing. And yet I think there's enough that we could point to say that their perspective is as wrong as it is right, because there isn't some North Star data point that you could gesture over to and say, well, these people are completely got it wrong and they're off in left field. And
I
the
disagree.
thing that you have to remember is that on a partisan perspective, so many times we've heard over more than one presidency that Trump is the maverick and he can do whatever he wants and he's draining this swamp and he's an outsider and a renegade. And so many times we've seen his policy be pre-digested stuff that was formulated over years by the Hoover Institution or through one of these Koch brothers think tanks, and then just
Project 2025
by Trump when he gets in a position to make some changes. The rate of change in his first 100 days in his second administration clearly indicates, whether you're going to get down the rabbit hole with Project 2025 or not, clearly indicates that all this stuff was sort of percolating and ready to go. And there's no way this fast food eating fucktard has had the time, the bandwidth, the mental acuity to wrap his mind around all of this stuff that he's now pushing through as an agenda. And so to think that this article is slandering him because Trump hasn't said that is a partisan perspective. I respect your shot at trying to reframe it, but I think
just the truth.
History might not agree with you.
That's cool. History can be wrong if they want. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, Yarrow, because history is written by the victors. So you know what I mean? Like that's how that works.
I have good hair today, and Michael MInardi has a comment to make.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Michael,
let's talk about the facts.
Today.
Yeah, the facts every day.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the facts. This is about that budget amendment. And if that does get pulled out, like Jenny was saying, this is chaos for the country. It kind of aligns into, I think, one of the articles we spoke to yesterday or last week regarding the challenge that may potentially go to the U.S. Supreme Court related to this half in, half out policy. But this type of situation, I think, would maybe have Clarence Thomas lose some sleep at night with his position on this issue. So, and I think it would make it really ripe for a great federal lawsuit challenging the implication of that and them starting to, go in and prosecute tax-paying people over years for something that the federal government has allowed to happen for the last, 20 years. It would be ridiculous, and hopefully there'd be a huge outrage and a continued human rights violation in this country.
I agree, and Yarrow, just to your point, I think it's important also too to note that budget rider was in place for all of Trump's first 4 years, and there was, you know what I'm saying. So I think that's just an important sidebar to note on there. But I did, you know, Jenny, you covered that white paper by the DCC yesterday, and I feel like that really ties in with this article a lot because of the enforcement powers that the federal government have, and the fact that the state of California is calling for the federal government to come in and do these type of artificial, you know, sting operations or whatnot on different businesses and entities and individuals and whatnot.
They're asking to cross state lines. They want to enforce on an interstate level as a state-sanctioned regulatory body. They're not the cops. They're not the FBI. They're not the DEA. We're talking about people who used to work as librarians and shit like that. Like, you have no basis to be able to do this. So we need to be paying attention to policy, you guys. Quit crying about whether your distillate's strong enough or not, and, you know, your vape hardware misfired, and go figure out how to protect the industry.
Well, then Marijuana Moment should be applauded for bringing this out and letting everybody see what is possibly going to happen.
Hey, you know, that's a perspective you're totally entitled to have on that, Todd. But I did reach out to someone that used to work in the Drug Enforcement Administration, and I sent him over that white paper that you wrote an article about yesterday, Jenny, and they sent back to me. They said it's designed to crush small businesses so the large conglomerates can take over. Also, it's loaded with due process violations, Jenny Beth. I thought that was
no due process anymore.
One of the things that it also does is try to remove any kind of rights to dispute it, any kind of actual due process. There's already so little due process in the way that California enacts its regulatory fucking ass whippings. Taking those back and giving less time for appeal, which there's very little time, and it costs you $5,000, by the way, to appeal a fucking fine to the DCC. So just pay the fine and go ahead and go about your day and get your metric turned back on. But it's ridiculous. So they're like, hey, you can't fight us already, but just in case you could, and you had a shoebox of grandma's money from like 20 million years ago, we're going to really fucking can. This is an absolute egregious overreach, but yeah, I don't want to get back on that because I'm still really, really, really pissed off about it.
I think we can also look at other areas of policy to get a sense of what Trump might do with cannabis. I mean, let's look at what they're doing in terms of immigration or people here who are undocumented, or the ways in which they're enforcing the laws differently.
See, I thought you would have just said the Farm Bill, Yarrow.
Or previously in his first administration.
You have no due process.
There's definitely, like, if I have the opportunity to name a new cultivar, I'm gonna name it habeas corpus, because it's gonna be so rare and valuable these days that I know it's gonna sell out through the stores. So I think this administration and its fingering of, you know, it's middle finger to the judicial branch means it's, you know, I think Trump is going to do what he wants to do, but I don't know that he's going to choose to stick his neck out and do something innovative or that prioritizes personal liberties because he can. I just don't see it. I think a lot of that sort of outsider renegade, I'll do what I want, is bravado, and it's a great facade for him to try to play to the base. But when he's gotten into office, it does seem to be a lot of business as usual.
Well, on that, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into Mr. Michael MInardi. Michael MInardi is a lawyer out in the great red state of Florida, and he's been helping cannabis patients, advocates, and caregivers protect their freedoms and liberty for over the past 20 years. And you can find him at his law office at MInardi Law out there in the great state of Florida. It is none other than Mr. Michael MInardi.
Pleasure, everyone. Happy high at noon on the East Coast. And one of my favorite things as well is fungus and psychedelics. So this is a cool little thing. As kids, you read the Alchemist book and you could eat morning glory seeds to get high. Well, this may be why. West Virginia University student of Ohio discovers long-awaited mystery fungus sought by LSD's inventor. Making a discovery with potential for innovative applications in pharmaceutical development, a West Virginia University microbiology student has found a long-sought-after fungus that produces effects similar to the semi-synthetic drug LSD, which is used to treat conditions like depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and addiction. And this brings us back to the days of Elysium and the old Greeks and soma and the use of the first ever psychedelic brews in this world. Corrine Hazel, a Delaware of Ohio, an environmental microbiology major and Goldwater scholar, discovered the new species of fungus growing in morning glory plants and named it Paraglandia clandestina. Hazel made the discovery while working in the lab with Daniel Panaxoni, Davis Michael Professor of Plant and Soil Sciences at the WVU Davis College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. She was studying how morning glories disperse protective chemicals called ergot alkaloids. Remember that name, ergot? Though their roots when she saw evidence of a fungus. We had a ton of plants lying around and they had these tiny little seed coats, she said. We noticed a little bit of fuzz in the seed coat. That was our fungus. The researchers prepared a DNA sample and sent it away for genome sequencing. Funded by a WVU Davis College Student Enhancement Grant obtained by Hazel, the sequencing confirmed the discovery of a new species, and the sequence is now deposited in a gene bank with her name on it. Sequencing a genome is a significant thing. It's amazing for a student. Morning glory plants live in symbiosis with fungi that produce the same ergot alkaloids that Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann modified when he invented LSD in the 1930s. Hofmann hypothesized that fungus in morning glories produced alkaloids similar to those in LSD, but the species remained a mystery until Hazel's discovery. They published their findings in Mycologia. Morning glories contain high concentrations of similar lysergic acid derivatives that give them their psychedelic activities. This inspired Hofmann and others to invest morning glories for the presence of a hidden fungus related to the ergot fungus that might be the source of these chemicals. They found very similar chemicals, but they could never find the fungus itself. Ergot alkaloids are made exclusively by fungi. In addition to morning glories, they're often found growing on grains like rye. They can become poisonous to humans and livestock when used therapeutically and can have unwanted side effects. Now, in the old days, there's plenty of proof that in some ancient artifacts that they found in cups in Greece and in other places throughout the world, there was ergot in those cups, leading to the continued belief that humans and people on this earth have been using ergot as a psychedelic brew since the days of Socrates, and especially in Greece and Elysium. Paraglandia clandestina is highly efficient in making ergot alkaloids in large quantities, a characteristic that may play a role in future pharmaceuticals. The discovery of the fungus opens a host of potential research avenues. Many things are toxic, but if you administer them in the right dosage or modify them, they can be useful pharmaceuticals. By studying them, we may be able to figure out ways to bypass the side effects. These are big issues for medicine and agriculture. The researchers dubbed the fungus Paraglandia clandestina for its ability to have eluded investigators for decades. I think it's the perfect name, Hazel said, and I love we did this project together. Corrine has a lot of talent. It's about students recognizing the opportunities, seizing them, and having the skill and the brain power to bring this work to fruition. Hazel is now studying the most effective ways to culture the slow-growing fungus and is interested in whether morning glory species other morning glory species may also contain ergot alkaloids from a fungal symbiote that has yet been described. I'm lucky to have stumbled upon this opportunity. People have been looking for this fungus for years, and one day I look in the right place, and there it is. I'm very proud of the work that I've done at WVU. You know, this is just amazing to me. In the market, we see all the different psychedelics that are coming online around the country. And in Florida, you know, psilocybin has been banned, but they've come out with a lot of different tryptamines that people can use. And I think this potentially, maybe not in the medical field so much, but if we get some chemists out there than in the psychedelic field, this may have a huge impact very quickly and help us understand what they were doing in ancient Greece and in ancient India when they were using these original soma brews and Elysium brews that were made of ergot from grains. What do you guys think?
This is
new fungus among us.
Yes, this is great news right here, Michael. This is, you know what I'm saying, the fungi among guy right here. And they were trying to find this when they were creating LSD. Am I correct on that? I'm missing that tie-in.
It sounds like he was the inventor of LSD was as well trying to find this fungi. He knew it existed but couldn't find it. I grow morning glories all the time.
Wow. Wow. What do you guys say, Todd?
He invented the LSD from that original mushroom?
So my understanding, LSD was originally it was a mold. Yeah, it wasn't a mushroom. It was a mold that grew on. I thought it was bread.
I thought that was penicillin. That's how they found penicillin.
Yep, that's what he was trying to find, right? Penicillin.
Yeah, that was. So you're saying that they found this fungus the same way that they found penicillin?
No, she found it. Yeah, I mean that's how they found it. They were just researching morning glories, and they realized morning glory is a flower.
Fascinating.
And it's a fungus that grows on the seed coating, probably as a protective layer to protect the seeds from animals or something eating it. Kind of like THC and cannabis, right? It's supposed to be the plant's defense mechanism.
I wonder if there's a publicly traded morning glory company that invests.
There's got to be, right, Todd? If not, yeah, exactly. If not, there will be soon. That is for sure, without a doubt. Man, this is super fascinating. This that they were trying to find this. I just imagine that some pharmaceutical company is going to try to come in and try to swoop this up and patent this, and you know what I'm saying, try to control it, especially since it's so new.
California is going to become the morning glory capital of the world.
That's because we have the best sunrises, Todd.
Oh, you have the best weather for sure.
Just it's what it is.
A little cold out there.
Yeah, Jenny Beth, you have any thoughts on this?
No, not really. That is interesting, but not really.
Okay.
Nothing.
Yarrow, Jay, any thoughts?
All right,
fair enough. Look at that. All right, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into our next commercial, and we're going to be right back. Thank you so much for that, Michael. Yes, and stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.highatnightnews.com.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Yes, and we are back, you guys. Jenny Beth, you got Todd?
The Golden Voice from his golden years, straight out of Las Vegas, Nevada, the founder of DigiPath Labs and the Smuggleverse. He's looking a little red in the face, so go ahead, Todd.
Oh, well, that's because the sun is shining bright here in lovely Las Vegas, Nevada.
You weren't holding your breath, were you, Todd?
Kush for that. What's that?
You weren't holding your breath, were you?
No.
Okay. All right.
Holding my. I got some local news here as the Nevada governor signs a bill to stop disqualifying people from being foster parents for marijuana convictions. That's right. Nevada's governor has signed a bill to remove a restriction currently preventing people from being foster parents who past marijuana convictions. Now, Nevada voters legalized cannabis for adult use at the ballot in 2016. State law had continued to make it so adults with convictions for cannabis or other controlled substances more than 5 years ago were prohibited from being foster parents or from owning, working at, or residing at a foster home. New policy sponsored by Assembly member Tracy Brown May, a Democrat, and signed into law by Governor Joe Lombardo, a Republican, on Thursday will change all of that. AB 107, which unanimously passed the Assembly and cleared the Senate, a 19-2 vote, amends prior statute to carve out an exemption for foster parents and workers who were convicted of low-level cannabis possession at the state or local level, quote, within the immediately preceding 5 years, unquote, of seeking a license. Convictions for selling cannabis will not be exempt from the existing restriction. Until now, state officials have been able to suspend or revoke a foster care license. A background check, which must be conducted every 5 years, was a prior cannabis record. This bill thereby authorizes a person who has been convicted of any such violation to operate, be employed by, reside in, or be present in a foster home. Ashley Kennedy, a lobbyist for Clark County, which requested the legislative fix, told lawmakers earlier this month that, quote, over the years, we have lost qualified caring individuals due to former criminal records, particularly from marijuana convictions related to possession that were over 20 years old or longer, unquote. And those types of convictions no longer align with Nevada's current laws. The Senate's final passage of the bipartisan measure, it now goes to the desk of Governor Joe Lombardo, who has previously approved cannabis and psychedelic reform legislation. For what it's worth, a 2023 study found that states that legalized medical marijuana saw a nearly 20% drop in the number of children entering foster care due to parental drug misuse after 3 years of the reform. Legalizing for adult use, meanwhile, was not associated with any statistically significant change in foster care entries. While the study didn't identify a meaningful link between adult use legalization and foster care drug misuse cases, a separate study published in 2022 did. Researchers at the University of Mississippi found that recreational legalization was associated with at least a 10% decrease in foster care admissions on average, including reductions in placements due to physical abuse, neglect, parental incarceration, and misuse of alcohol and other drugs. Meanwhile, in Nevada, the state assembly recently amended and advanced a Senate-passed joint resolution calling on Congress to reschedule certain psychedelics, streamline research, and provide protections for people using the substances in compliance with state law. Last month, meanwhile, a Nevada Assembly committee passed a psychedelic pilot program bill that would allow some patients with certain medical conditions to legally access substances such as psilocybin, DMT, ibogaine, and mescaline. I'm Todd Denkin with High at 9 News, and look at that. Nevada taking some steps to actually help out former cannabis convicts. What do you guys think?
This is... Jenny, do you want to touch on this as a parent first before I go?
Well, is this an update from the one we did last Wednesday?
It sounds like an update. It does sound like an update. I think this is fantastic news overall.
Yeah.
Anything that helps keep parents with their kids, especially if they're not putting them in harm's way and whatnot, for as far as abusive situations and whatnot, I'm all for. And this just sounds like it's going to keep more families together overall. And so I'm a supporter of this.
It also opens the door for more cannabis convict legislation to go through and to get these folks out of jail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Yeah, I think anything that abolishes and doesn't use people's prior misdemeanor, especially criminal charges for cannabis against them, is a positive step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why stop at misdemeanors? We would not have had a second child had we been able to adopt, but because of my cannabis convictions, I knew that wasn't an option for me. And so when we talk about the destigmatization of cannabis, this is just another place where we're pretty far behind in terms of, I mean, if somebody had a DUI, 15 years ago? Would that prevent them from being a foster parent? So we don't have parity, and it's another example of it.
Well, and especially in a legal state where multi-million-dollar operations are selling it at this point. I'm totally with you. So can those people who are part of those businesses not apply for to be a foster parent? That's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm 100%.
Jay, you have any thoughts on this out there in Texas?
I think that unfortunately Texas is headed in the opposite direction, but I agree with the sentiment in the panel that anything that destigmatizes the stigma that was attached to marijuana and cannabis, for the last century in the war on drugs is good, and it should be done.
Fair enough.
Because
look at that. I think we have a unanimous consensus across the board with you guys on this, that this is overall is good news. Am I right? There's no disagreement on that? Look at that. Yarrow, I know that makes you very unhappy because I know you love disagreement on this show.
I mean, too much agreement kills a good conversation.
Yep.
It's not. I didn't come up with that saying. I'm just trying to live my best life.
I love it, bro. I'm so here. And we're going to roll into our final commercial so Yarrow can get his iced coffee back again.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, And I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade. And in a GMP certified facility, so you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Test it. It's not a name, it's a promise.
over to the Fat Boy Sings.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Coming up next, it is Mr. Jay Maguire from the great red state of Texas. Jay Maguire is a seasoned policy strategist, media consultant, and industry advocate with over 2 decades of experience in Texas politics, regulatory reform, and public affairs. He currently serves as the executive director of the Texas Hemp Federation and is the co-founder of CRAFT, the Cannabis Retail Alliance for Texas, a standard-setting and compliance-driven alliance for the hemp retailers, and it is none other than Mr. Jay Maguire.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on again.
Yes.
So you asked me today to give your viewers a report on what's been going on in Texas, and here's the very depressing and sad truth. The Texas legislature, largely led through the manipulative and strong-arm tactics of our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, has recriminalized all hemp-derived THC. All THC is now a criminal offense if Governor Abbott signs the bill. So in a separate bill, it also criminalized all vape of all kinds, flavored nicotine vape, and vape devices made in China. And so if you take a step back and look at the totality of the devastation that's about to be wrought upon the smoke shops and vape stores and CBD stores and wellness centers and dispensaries and apothecaries and our entire $4.5 billion retail sector will be eliminated by September 1st. Going along with that is what I think pretty clear evidence of political spoils and corruption. Dan Patrick is Lieutenant Governor of Texas. He has the sole power to recognize the senator when he or she stands up to speak, and therefore controls all of the flow of legislation through the Senate. This has not historically always been the case with the Lieutenant Governor, but Patrick has done an outstanding job of accruing power to himself. In the legislative session, he made banning THC his number 3 priority for his entire agenda. And the House initially did not seem to want to go along with him. At the same time, though, the House, as it has for years, wanted to expand our compassionate use program, which is colloquially known as TCUP. The Texas Compassionate Use Program is renowned across the country as being the most stingy, least functional, least accessible, and most useless compassionate use program. It's not really compassionate at all. Very few people and very few conditions were covered. And so it played out like this. Dan Patrick allowed an expansion of TCUP. He allowed for a certain number of new licenses to be granted, but only to those applicants from a previous round of license consideration that was canceled in 2023. Paragraph, he conditioned this upon the House stripping the amendments that would have created a regulated state for the cannabis industry, and instead reverting to Senate language that criminalized all of it. And it worked. So Dan Patrick got what he wanted. He eliminated, if Governor Abbott actually signs the bills, 2 of them, then he'll have eliminated the hemp-derived cannabis market, and he will have expanded the scope of the TCUP program, but only in a way that benefits him. We've got information that's come in that indicates that one of his chief employees is in a business arrangement, possibly, with a company that was formed in 2023 and applied for one of those licenses. Incidentally, the lobby team informs me that silent partners are not required to be disclosed in the license application. It looks a whole lot like Tammany Hall and crony capitals and crony politics. And I'm pretty disgusted by the whole thing, if you want to know the honest to God truth. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in Texas. And we are renowned for, when we have major corruption, we really have it. He saw his opportunities and he took them. That's the bottom line. So what's happening now is that advocates of all of the organizations that, pushed for hemp to have the right to exist are scrambling with veto strategies. Governor Abbott has a 20-day period to review the 3 bills, the one relating to TCUP expansion, the one relating to the end, Senate Bill 3, the end of hemp as we know it, and House Bill 2024, which bans all vape, especially that from China, but all vape in general. You guys can see where I'm going with this. Dan Patrick is in a position where he has controlled the entire legislative process and handed our governor with a great, big, stinking mess. Governor Abbott is being pressured by not just by industry, but by veterans groups and by consumers and, civil libertarians and, people who have absolutely no power in this state because Dan Patrick holds it all. And I'm saying his name over and over again because I want people to remember it. Abbott said in an interview yesterday that he was taking a close look at it. So he's got 20 days from the date each of those bills hit his executive clerk's desk, minus the Sundays. So right around the middle of the month is when we'll know if he's going to sign any of them, veto any of them, or just allow them to become law. Obviously, we really want him to veto all of them. And I say that about the TCUP bill because I don't think that the cronyism involved and the inherent unfairness in allowing people connected to him to benefit financially and maybe even benefit him financially is right. So I hope Governor Abbott does the right thing and calls for a reset. We hear that the Light Gov is moving to Washington, D.C., where the president has appointed him to some commission to study evangelical Christianity, which I think is a very good occupation for him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. We're screwed. Wow. Yeah.
Well,
sounds absolutely horrible.
It's a pretty bad situation going on out there in Texas right now with this legislation. It's pretty poor, and prohibition should have taught us one thing, is that these total bans don't do anything but empower cartels and whatnot, and really, it impacts freedom and doesn't create a safer, a safer world overall. It just inhibits bad actors to keep being bad actors, and keeps, prices high for those that do want these type of treatments. And so it's very unfortunate. Quality standards are going to drop down with all of this, and the world may be a little bit more dangerous, although they're trying to do it in the name of public safety, but we know that's all a total bunch of BS.
Yeah, and we've thrown around some words like due process today. We haven't talked about it, but interstate commerce. I feel like these states have totally lost their guidance, and most of the courts on these issues with interstate commerce is. And when the Farm Bill was originally enacted by Trump, it put these products on the market, it envisioned and not interfere with interstate commerce. And the idea was to create an industry for our farmers in hemp. And at that point in time, maybe they didn't know what it was. I kind of don't necessarily believe that, but maybe Mitch McConnell didn't know all the types of products that could be created out of it. But they created a very broad definition of hemp and said, don't interfere with interstate commerce. And when you take a whole state and you rip it from interstate commerce, how does that create the goals of that original legislation to determine the economic viability of hemp as an agricultural product throughout this country? It just doesn't, and it's ridiculous. I think it should be a violation of the hemp laws. How some of these courts throughout the country have interpreted the Farm Bill, I think, is entirely incorrect and a misreading of it. And I hope that your organization, and I know there's some great attorneys out there, part of NORML and stuff like that I've known for a long time, stand up and fight for the hemp industry out there and challenge it and say, listen, you may be able to make it illegal to sell, which I think they may be able to do, but in no way, can they turn around and then criminalize a federally legal product that is no longer a controlled substance on the federal level. It is removed from the controlled substance. And I think these states, don't understand that. And we're literally going back to, and a lot of the cases I cited and some of the arguments that I make are the prohibition cases from alcohol, when states still wanted to have it criminal and people were shipping it across state lines. So good luck to you, and I hope that if he does sign it, which I hope he doesn't, that the legal battle gets won over there.
That's a really interesting argument. Oh, go ahead, Jay, please.
I was going to say that the legal teams, multiple legal teams are working on their prep for the lawsuits right now as well. I do a lot of work with David Sergi, who is associated with Rod Kite and Philip Snow, and their organization, which I think is called American Healthy Alternatives. And there are other legal teams, one of which is being controlled or paid for rather by Hometown Hero and their group, the Hemp Business Council. All of them, and this is perhaps the one miracle that can arise from the ashes of this last session, all of these groups that have been pursuing their own agendas, including mine to some extent, are coordinating the legal effort. At least to the degree that everybody had a phone call or a Zoom call this last week and agreed on what lanes people were going to tackle and to be mutually supportive and not overstep or to be duplicitous of each other's work. That's about as much as we can hope for. We absolutely have takings clause, due process, and interstate commerce claims to make if these bills become law. But I think that we're looking at it a little bit too legalistically and not enough from the political side, which is that the culture war exists for a political reason. It creates a political benefit for the ruling party in this state. And the Republicans have had 30 years of free reign because they're just really good at creating wedge issues that Democrats just don't know how to respond to, and always resonates with the voters. Reefer madness was invented in El Paso, Texas, in 1910, when El Paso enacted the first cannabis prohibition law that was entirely and not even a little bit disguised, aimed at kicking out all the Mexican citizens from El Paso back to Juarez.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not very much different now. I mean, the veiled, the disparate impact on minority groups is going to be very quantifiable and palpable. But even in the rhetoric leading up to this, talking about the people who own the smoke shops, all of whom, a vast majority of whom are from different, countries of origin, almost all Middle Eastern or Indian or Pakistani. And, the people whose stores that were raided and who were kicked out of their beds at 5 a.m. and whose Muslim wives, two of my friends, Muslim wives, 7 months pregnant, one of them dressed only in a T-shirt, not allowed to cover up, kicked out of the house. Their kids got to see them thrown in the back of a squad car. These men are not El Chapo.
Mm-hmm.
They're smoke shop owners. They're selling products that have been tested by DEA registered, ISO accredited labs. And our lieutenant governor decided that didn't matter. And so there are all kinds of really corrupt things that went on here. And we'll expose them the best we can. But until the political benefit from doing this doesn't put them where they are, then it's going to keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
So sacrificing the $4.5 billion market and the 50,000 jobs and the 8,500 stores and creating all of this mess empowers the cartels for sure, because they're going to look at this unmet demand as an opportunity. They've probably been hating on us for a long time because we sort of drank their milkshake by, when the Farm Bill was enacted and Delta 8 arrived first time in 2021. But the DPS also benefits. They get Mission Creek built in. They get to expand their influence. Vast number of new criminal cases are going to be brought by them. Everyday interactions between police and citizens is going to change. This is going to suck. And, I think, let's just call it like it is. It's a culture war. It's an artifact of the culture war that we don't talk about enough, and we really should.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
I'm 100% with you on that. I believe this is a human rights violation. And I understand your fight. I'm in Florida, so we deal with the same political issues that you do. And I can say healthy alternatives, from my understanding, was a part of getting our governor to veto last year's horrible hemp bill here as well. So good luck to you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I could say, maybe a little ray of hope. President Trump tweeted yesterday. Maybe tweeted is not the right word anymore. I'm a little behind the times. He truthed about saving vape back in, I think it was 2017 or 2018 with Tony Abood and VTA. I ran the state affiliate at the time. There was a meeting in the White House with the FDA and the antis, or the advocacy groups that wanted to end flavored vapes, which happened here in this bill that we just passed. And the president's truth said, I saved vape once and I can do it again. So that's part of the veto strategy. We're really hoping that we can get an emissary to remind him of why he needs to stay on that.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Look at that. He's going to save the vape, Yarrow.
I don't think so. Not with the vast majority of products being vape components being manufactured in China. I think Trump saving anything is like the air that comes out of an exhalation from vape. It just quickly dissipates. It's not a thing. So I think that's I mean, it's really, how do I say this? Those that think that Trump is saving, the vape tech industry are probably higher than I've ever been.
Misunderstood. This isn't about Trump doing anything. It's about Trump saying something and his underlings scrambling like North Korean minions of Kim Jong-il to do what he wants. All he had to do was say one thing, and the FDA dropped it.
Yep.
And everybody else did too. I'm hoping that he tweets or does whatever, and Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott and our Attorney General and all the other statewide elected officials in the ruling party look at him and say, "Oh, this is what he wants, so we better do what he wants."
Yeah.
You know, because that is how they act. Yeah, it's political.
That's fair. That's fair.
Fix.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. That's fair. And go ahead, please.
I worry a lot about the hemp industry down in Texas. I mean, I'd worry more about their cannabis industry if they had one that was a bit more fleshed out. But the hemp down there is an important, and it's not just about recreational inebriation.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody really wants to make America great again, they're going to have to think about the American farmer.
Yep.
Fair enough. Jenny Beth, are you ready to introduce Yarrow for our final story of the day?
I don't want to get him off the shelf. He's stuck up there.
He's stuck up there. All that iced coffee got him way down.
Yeah, he's heavy. He's heavy this morning. Come on,
It's iced coffee is the thing, though.
Well, good. We got to go for a run because I just threw my back out lifting off the angriest elf on the high at 9 shelf, Yarrow Kubrin.
Oh my God, girl! I cannot believe you used the expression "threw my back out" and my name in the same sentence. We're not going there.
Oh boy.
In any case,
I threw my back out, not blew my back out. Don't get confused.
Tuesday, June 3rd. Good morning. High at 9 News viewers. Thanks for tuning in. Yarrow Kubrin, my article today, without further ado, right out of the Keolin.com news and published here today. Former state worker accused of forging marijuana card. This is out of South Dakota. A Pierre woman has been charged with 4 counts of falsifying her own medical marijuana card while she was an employee of the South Dakota Department of Health. According to the news release from the South Dakota Attorney General's office, Alexandra Fernan, 24, youngster, has been charged with forgery, false and forged instruments, falsification of public records, and possession of a forged instrument with intent to defraud. The defendant is charged with using her position of trust as a Department of Health employee for her own personal benefit, State Attorney General Marty Jackley said in his news release. His statement added, "This type of conduct reflects poorly on those state government employees who work hard for South Dakotans." The alleged crimes occurred between March of 24 and March of 25. The South Dakota Department of Health oversees the state's medical marijuana program and cooperated with the investigation conducted by South Dakota Division of Criminal Investigation. The DOH has more than 4 different medical cannabis administrators since the program was created after the November 2020 election. This gal applied for and received a medical cannabis card in April of 2023. She's certified to receive the card by practitioner Donna Linking of Healing Spirit Psychiatry and Counseling PPLC. She paid for this application, the court document said. Anyway, so this renewal option opened up for her card in February of 2024, and she allegedly extended the expiration date of the card and approved her own renewal. She then allegedly created a new card for herself, which had a further expiration. According to court documents, the DOH Secretary Melissa Magstar reached out to the DCI on March 5th after another DOH employee overheard another employee speaking at a local gym. Snitchy! This gal confirmed that the defendant in question had the ability within the system to create and issue medical marijuana cards. So let me sort of wrap this up in the interest of time. Poor 24-year-old gal who works for the government got a legit card and then falsified an extension of the card. I do not know why. I do know, now that I have teenagers, that the brain is not fully developed in humans until 25. So bad judgment is part of growing up, and growing up doesn't end when you're 18. So here we go. Over prosecution or accountability? Y'all tell me.
Well, this is less about cannabis and more about fraud, right? Like, damn. That's just like an operator who I won't name because they are actually cool now, in Colorado who didn't know how to get a license, so they just printed one up on the computer and put it on the wall.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I found this story extremely entertaining personally. The fact that she had a card, okay, and then let it expire and then was like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to remake myself a new card. So then it was just like, so random. Like you already went through the process. You're already certified to be a patient. Why not just go through the proper process of renewing it? I mean, you're a state worker and you work back there. Like that's going to be like super obvious if you've done something like that because you have all those access to all those tools. I was just like, this is a no brainer. Like how?
Well, it's also, this card is not just a card, right? She's not making herself a new library card because she forgot to return some books, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's falsifying a document that is attached to a physician's prescription.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also kind of a big deal. And if she falsified her card, how many cards she sell at the back door of that place?
Oh, good point.
Well, they're
Jenny.
not alleging that she sold any, and so I mean, I think that's a really important point. Are there any collaborators, co-conspirators? Did she do this on behalf of somebody else? Was she bribed or induced to do this? There's somebody who probably was worried about maintaining their lawful employment with the government and may have been concerned that because their card expired, they were now exposed. I, for the life of me, can't understand why South Dakota thinks they need to prosecute this. There is an argument that if you were terminated as a result of this behavior, that in and of itself is a sentence, right? You lost your job and you're not getting a good referral, and you're probably not going to be able to put that up on LinkedIn and just put up an open for work sign. I just don't understand how this, where's the victim in this is what I'm trying to understand.
I think the state is the victim in this one. Yarrow.
Yeah, I mean, the fraud issue of it is very interesting because it is implication. We wouldn't be okay with someone, fraudulently doing a driver's license or something of that nature. We laugh because it's cannabis, and honestly, she shouldn't have to renew her card every year if she's a qualified patient. I think that in and of itself is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just probably a bad judgment. And I guess she underpaid. She couldn't get the day off to go to the doctor and pay the $75 like in Florida or something that you have to pay for a medical card. I mean, is it they just pay too low? Just stupid.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just bullshit that you have to have a card to get the plant because it's a plant.
Another one.
Hey, hey, Jay, you have a very good point there, Jay. A very, very, very good point there.
I just think,
no offense to anybody, but it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And good for her. Sorry she got caught.
I think about her family. I think about her. I guess I just woke up on the compassionate side of the bed this morning. Like, I guess technically it's fraud. It's a forgery document.
Technically, yeah, right.
Is it a fraud to defraud the fraudsters? Because foreign drugs is a fraud.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh man.
I think she might have had a blackout and then used some whiteout. I just don't know that. Like, I mean, it seems like
whatever she's done, she's proven herself unfit to hold that amount of responsibility and trust in the position with that much access.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder how much they're going to spend making this 24-year-old learn her lesson more than she would have learned through just termination.
The fraud is a little broad because that's like her saying she wasn't a qualified patient. She just extended a date.
Yeah.
It is a complete waste of resources. It's entirely unuseful, and it's just exactly why this plant has to be legalized for all adults.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you on that, Michael. This plant does need to be legalized. We need a full descheduling of this plant, and yeah, I'm so with you on that. It's been far too long that we've been operating under these types of draconian laws in all of these states.
That's why we're doing this, right, brother?
That's right. That's right. You have a final word you'd like to say, Yarrow, before we get out of here today?
No, I just. I understand the justice is blind.
Mm-hmm.
And 24, I guess I'm just old enough to really not see 24 as fully capable of making solid strategic adult decisions.
Fair enough. Fair enough, Yarrow. Very fair enough, buddy. And on that, Thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution, Tested, and Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. Thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. And thank you to Cloud Media Partners Anthony out there in the metaverse somewhere. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.